All right, good morning, everybody. People who've been following this channel for a long time now, they know that I've talked about the boxing media, talked about how things have changed in regards to the sport of boxing, the way it's being promoted, the expectations of the fighters now are called upon to do more of the promotion themselves because we have this new social media construct, not only in boxing, but in just about everything. Social media has a large impact on a multitude of areas in life, not only boxing, not only other sports, but in the entertainment world. And it's very easy for anybody, the average Joe even, to go on the internet, log into their Twitter account, log into their Facebook account, log into their Instagram account, and they can virtually say anything. And it goes out to millions and millions of people in less than a second. So the process of delivering information has really changed greatly. But the problem with that is you have to really look at the source. I think promoters have gotten lazy. I think the boxing media has gotten lazy. And technology is a good thing, but sometimes too much technology can make people lazy. And when people get lazy, they become complacent. When people become complacent, what they generally do is they don't put out quality work anymore. So the information that's being put out is just really questionable information. Boxing journalists now have resorted to just putting sources in front of a headline now, and automatically people are supposed to believe their sources, even when they have a history of their sources being wrong. And again, I'm going to name drop here, and I'm not afraid to name drop. Mike Coppinger is one of the greatest offenders of doing this. He's one of the greatest, offenders of doing this, because constantly this guy puts out this talks type headlines. So and so is in talks. Sources say, and again, what are your sources? What are your sources? Because the old rule in journalism is, you're supposed to get more than one source, and these journalists are not doing that. It's the same thing with this whole Mike Tyson situation. You had Holyfield's team come out and say, okay, about that, they're refusing all of our offers. Okay, but we didn't really hear from Mike Tyson's side. We're not hearing from Mike Tyson's management team. We heard Mike Tyson say that this fight is on, but we don't know the whole story. So all these other media outlets, these boxing websites, they not even just the boxing websites, but even TMZ now. So you got websites, and you got media sources like TMZ, World Star Hip Hop, reporting on boxing now. And they're basically telling us, or giving us an indication now, that the only time they want to put out boxing stories is when there's controversy. So now boxing is being turned into the National Enquirer, so to speak, because you got websites like TMZ, you got websites like World Star Hip Hop. Every time Adrian Broner does something stupid, every time Tank Davis does something that's not always the greatest thing, first thing you see is these videos. You see these fighters on TMZ and World Star Hip Hop in their possible worst interpretation of themselves, see them at their worst. So this is what boxing's become. Okay. So even the fighters themselves, they go on social media and they get in these Twitter wars with other fighters. They go on social media and they'll post something, they'll post out and make claims. And automatically fans will be like, oh, wow, you see what so-and-so said? And I get messages on Facebook, on Twitter all the time. And these, people telling me, oh, this is going to happen. There's a rumor, blah, 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 blah. And everyone's getting all excited. But again, you guys keep falling for the same trap over and over again. Just like Devin Haney was trying to sell you a bill of goods that he was trying very hard to fight Lomachenko. Every time Devin Haney has a fight signed, that's when he starts dropping Lomachenko's name. He starts name dropping Lomachenko's name. And you have to question, when you look at Devin Haney's resume, look who he's fighting next. He's fighting Jorge Linares. Now, does anyone give Jorge Linares a snowball's chance in hell of beating Devin Haney? No, they don't. But Devin Haney goes on social media, talks about how everyone's ducking him, how all of a sudden, he's the most feared guy in the lightweight division. And this is the blueprint that Devin Haney has. It's a way of him attracting attention to himself every time he gets a fight signed. So he knows that Jorge Linares is not an opponent that is going to get people excited. So what's he go and do? He goes on social media and starts name dropping Teofimo Lopez's name, starts name dropping Lomachenko's name, knowing full well that he has no intentions of fighting either one of those guys in the near distant future. So these fighters are going on social media. Same thing with Jamal Charlo, goes on social media and starts talking trash to David Benavidez. So then David Benavidez calls his bluff. And then what does Charlo do? Oh, well, he's too old. Oh, he needs to get COVID tests. He needs to do this, that, and the third. And the fight never happened. It's no way near even close to being, a reality. Okay. And meanwhile, both of these guys are both PBC fighters. It would be one of the easiest fights to make in boxing. But again, Charlo, Devin Haney, and other fighters that like to go on social media and drop these headlines, call their fighters out, make these outlandish claims, try to throw shade on dangerous opponents, and then ultimately those fights never happen. And the end result is these guys are just looking for attention. They're looking for free, cheap promotion. And that's what social media has come to. It's allowed people to get promotion. And, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, because there's a lot of gullible people on social media. And anytime something is posted, it's accepted as law. But you have to look at the patterns here. Look at Coppinger's track record. How many times has he told you something was going to happen and it didn't happen? Or he leads you to believe something's going to happen and it didn't happen. Anybody can be in talks. I could call up Bob Arum right now and say, I want to fight Terence Crawford. And he can go tell me to go F myself. That means that myself and Bob Arum are in talks. I'm in talks to fight Terence Crawford. But there's no way in hell I'm ever going to fight Terence Crawford. So what does it mean that people are in talks? It's such a vague description of what's going on. It's such a meaningless, vague description on what's going on. Oh, so-and-so are in talks. What does that mean? What does that actually mean? Until you have a venue, a date, and you have a location, then none of this means anything. It's the same thing with Eddie Hearn coming out and talking about this Fury Joshua fight, and it's nowhere near close to being done. He's been telling you it's close to happening for 6 to 8 months now. If something's close to happening, then as soon as someone says it's close to happening, then you will get news shortly thereafter that it's going to happen. And that has not been the case. So I continue to get these messages on my social media. I continue to get these texts from my friends, and it's all BS. All this is the boxing media looking for cheap clicks, looking for headlines, because as I said, the boxing media has gotten lazy over the years. And I got to give Dan Raphael credit. He's the type of person where he really holds off on breaking stuff unless he has multiple sources, unless he has all of the information that you would need as a fan, or as anybody would need, not just a fan, but anyone. Yeah, he usually makes sure he gets all the information, and a fight is actually final before he releases news, because he himself has talked about Fury, Joshua, and Pacquiao Crawford, and he says that if you look at the timeline, it doesn't look like these fights are going to happen anytime soon. So as much as we like to give Dan Raphael stick, because sometimes he's a little bit aloof with boxing fans, he's disrespectful to the fighters or whatever. He's got an arrogance about him. He's got a kind of an edgy attitude about him. But regardless, I have to give him credit. He does do good work. Does practice due diligence in getting the information. We got to give him credit for that. But then you have all these other guys like Hoppinger, and even Chris Mannix has really gotten bad now. He sits there and breaks news. Oh, I'm hearing this, rumors of that, talks about this, talks about that. And then I people come to me and say, well, Chris Mannix said, well, who the fuck is Chris Mannix? He's another clickbaiter. He's turned into a corporate shill for DAZN. All you have to do is listen to his commentary. He's horrible. He's horrible. Okay, so I don't care if someone's in talks, because that's nothing. That means absolutely garbage. Okay? Anybody can be in talks. I could walk into a car dealership right now and say, I want to buy that friggin' Mercedes that cost $500,000. I'm going to buy that car someday. And I tell that to one of the dealers that works there. Does that mean that I'm going to buy that car tomorrow? Just because I'm in talks with that guy? Talk is cheap. Okay? Talk is cheap. It means nothing. All right? Talk is cheap, but evidence is free. All right? Shout out to Wheelchair Champion. He dropped that on one of my videos as a comment, and I think that's a great saying. Okay? So I'm just sick of it. I'm just sick of it. Don't allow these people to manipulate you time and time again, because that's all they're doing. They want cheap, free promotion. The fighters do. And I love the fighters. I'm all for the fighters. People make statements like, oh, well, this guy's overpaid. There's no such thing in my mind of a fighter ever being overpaid for what they do. I've seen fighters, what they do to have to prepare for fights, and how their lives are now that they're retired. And not everyone retires unscathed like Floyd Mayweather. Okay, so again, but what has happened is these fighters are manipulating us by dropping big names on their social media, making claims about how so-and-so ducked them and how they want to fight this guy and they want to fight that guy. But the evidence shows us otherwise. And they always do this. Again, it's not a coincidence that they always do this once they have a fight signed. Devin Haney has been notorious for name dropping. And then as soon as he starts name dropping, then we hear he's fighting. We hear he's fighting Linares. Okay? We hear he's fighting Gamboa. All right? Devin Haney is the WBC champion. And all you have to do is just look at his resume. It's not impressive. It's just not. Why can't he fight a guy like Nakatani? Why can't he fight a guy like Richard Comey? Okay? Why can't he do that? Instead of fighting a guy in Jorge Linares, who in his last 6 fights is 4-2. And those 2 losses, he was knocked out in both of them. And each of those losses is when he steps up. Does anyone give Jorge Linares a snowball chance in hell in beating Devin Haney? Again, at least you got a guy like Teofimo Lopez who's fighting a tough guy like Richard Comey, who's fighting Lomachenko, who wants to fight the winner of Ramirez versus Kelly, or excuse me, Taylor. Wants to fight the winner of Taylor Ramirez. He wants to unify again at 140. You got a guy like Devin Haney who's showing us no evidence that he wants to unify or that he wants to fight a tough fight. All we hear about is how he did this in sparring with so-and-so 10 years ago, which is meaningless, or how he sent contracts over and this and that, which is total lies. It's total lies. So don't let these guys manipulate you. And Pacquiao is never going to fight Crawford or Spence. Those fights will never, ever happen. They will never, ever happen. No matter who says what, just because Bob Arum reaches out to Pacquiao's management or whatever, just because someone in Pacquiao's circle wants to leak information that's not true. Pacquiao came out and denied it, said, and MP Promotions, which is the promotional company owned by Manny Pacquiao, they came out and said that is BS. We have never been contacted. So again, these journalists love the clickbait. They may have an interview with Bob Arum, and Bob Arum may say, we've been trying to make that fight, and automatically, boom, Arum is in Crawford and Pacquiao are in talks. Team Crawford's in talks with Team Pac. Bullshit. Even Crawford said the fight's not even close to being happened. Pacquiao is going to be 41 soon. He has absolutely no incentive to fight a guy like Errol Spence, no incentive to fight a guy like Terence Crawford, when he can fight a guy like Mikey Garcia or even Danny Garcia and make just as much, if not more, than if he were to fight either one of those guys. So boxing is set up right now, whether you believe it's good or bad, it's set up right now where fighters don't have to fight the best anymore to get paid. And because of that, a lot of these fighters like Devin Haney, who's getting paid allegedly $3 million a fight, to fight guys like Gamboa, to fight guys like Linares, he has no incentive to fight a guy like Lomachenko, where he would probably have to go 50-50. Okay? And if Devin Haney had to sit down with Team Lopez, he would never, ever be able to get purse parity against either one of those guys. So he can fight a guy like Gamboa. He can fight a guy like Linares, and he'll get 70-30. Okay? So there's no incentive for Devin Haney to fight Lomachenko, to fight anyone good, or to take on a tough challenge where he could possibly lose, because he's getting paid to fight guys that everyone knows he's going to beat, and he knows he's going to beat. Now, whether you think that's good or bad, I mean, I'm glad to see the fighters getting paid, but as a boxing fan, it's just not entertaining to watch one-sided fights. There's no you have no excitement going into a fight like Devin Haney versus Jorge Linares, when we all know that Linares has no shots. Devin Haney is not still coming up. He's got a WBC belt wrapped around his waist. Okay? He's got a WBC belt wrapped around his waist. Okay? He's a champion. He wants to be recognized as the world champion. And if that's the case, then he's got to fight other top fighters that can give him a challenge. The guy's got 25 fights. He's got 25 professional fights. He's been a pro for over 6 years already. And you want to say that he's still coming up? Meanwhile, you got a guy in Teofimo Lopez who's got 15 fights, and he's the unified champion. So again, I mean, you want to drink the Kool-Aid? You have a right to your own opinion. That's fine. That's fine. Linares might still be better than Luke Campbell. I don't think so. Not at this stage, no. Not at this stage, no. I don't agree. And once again, when you look at a guy like Ryan Garcia, he's not a world champion. He's not a world champion. He's on the come up, Ryan Garcia. And he's fighting Javier Fortuna next, which is a much tougher fight, much more difficult style at this stage than Linares. So even Ryan Garcia is fighting tougher opposition than Devin Haney. Really is. You know? But even him calling up Manny Pacquiao, once again, cheap promotion. Cheap promotion, cheap headlines. You know, he's got 21 fights, that's fine. He turned pro a year later than Devin Haney, but once again, he's not a champion. Technically, he's not a champion. Okay? He's got the interim WBC title, whatever. That's fine. That's fine. But he's going to be fighting Fortuna. That's a great opponent. That's a tough guy. When you look at Linares at this stage of his career, and with all due respect to Linares, he was a great fighter in his day. He's a great champion, but he's got a lot of miles on him. He hasn't looked good in a while. So we got to make a decision. Some fighters are moved slower than others, and some fighters are moved faster than others. Why do you think that is? If a management team really believes that a fighter is ready to fight the top opposition, whether or not he has 15 fights, or 25 fights, whatever. I mean, Beeb, if Haney fought Teo right now, who you got? I mean, that's an easy answer for me. I mean, Teofimo Lopez would beat him. Devin Haney does not. I mean, he's shown some skill here and there, but he doesn't have that killer instinct. He doesn't have that grittiness to him that someone like Teofimo Lopez has, someone like Lomachenko has. To me, he just doesn't have that fire in his belly. He just doesn't. I mean, when I watch him fight, he's doing just enough to win rounds. He's really going out. I mean, obviously, you're not supposed to put yourself in risk. I get that. But when you're dominating somebody, right, and you're having your way with somebody and you're still fighting cautiously, then that says something to me that maybe you may have a confidence problem. Or maybe you're overly concerned about getting hurt. Obviously, no one wants to get hurt in that ring. You do everything you can as a fighter to protect yourself. But if you're constantly thinking about, oh shoot, I don't want to get hit. Sometimes you got to just fight and not think about stuff like that. If you're constantly thinking about being defensive, then like Floyd Mayweather, you can say what you want about Floyd Mayweather, but he was a counterpuncher. You know, when you missed, he made you pay. Devin Haney looks to me like he's coasting, and he looked like he was coasting against Gamboa. He approached that Gamboa fight as if he was fighting Mike Tyson. And Gamboa at this stage of his career is not Mike Tyson. He never was. So yeah, I just don't see what a lot of other people see in Devin Haney. My co-host Eric Lora loves Devin Haney. He's really high on Devin Haney. I just don't. I mean, the guy's not a. He's a good fighter. I just don't think he'll ever be elite. I would pick Garcia to beat him. I would pick Lomachenko to beat him. I would pick Teofimo Lopez to beat him. I may even pick Richard Comey over him, to be perfectly honest with you, because those guys are tough, gritty fighters who are not only skilled, but they've shown they have that fire in their belly. They got that dog in them. To me, you have to have a little bit of dog in you. You have to have a little bit of spite in you to be a tough world champion and to be a great world champion. That's just me. That's just me. When you're at this level where everyone is skilled, it's the little things that separate these fighters, in my opinion. And I think that, in my opinion, Devin Haney doesn't have those little intangible things that a lot of these other guys have as a fighter. And I know he's got he's got a little bit of a fan base here on YouTube, but people will ride or die for this guy. I don't see what these other people see. I could be wrong. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right here, but I'm only giving you my opinion on what I think about Devin Haney. I got to give you my opinion on what I think about Devin Haney. And right now, I'm more impressed with a lot of other guys. I'm extremely impressed with Ryan Garcia because Campbell's a tough he's a tough opponent. Campbell went the full 12 with Lomachenko. Garcia knocked him out. And you want to say, oh, well, he got knocked down in the fight. Well, Lomachenko got knocked down against Linares. And in my opinion, I think Campbell's got a lot more left in the tank than Linares does at this stage. If they were to fight today, tomorrow, I would pick Campbell over Linares at this stage. And when they fought about 3 or 4 years ago, the fight was razor close. Could have gone either way. It was that close. And many people could argue if that fight was in the UK, Campbell would have got the decision. That's how close it was. Again, we don't know who blatantly dug to. We just don't know. Okay, we don't know. Again, you have to understand how boxing works. Just because you're the mandatory, the WBC has to initiate and order a mandatory defense. We saw Dillian White, who was the mandatory for almost 2 years, and the WBC never ordered the mandatory fight. They never forced Dillian White to fight Deontay Wilder. Do I think Haney is protected? Maybe so. I think that there's a reason why he keeps fighting the types of opponents that he's fighting. So I'm not going to buy this Haney's being ducked BS because, again, the WBC, if they want to make a fight, they have to order the fight. It's not up to the fighter to say, hey, Dillian White was ranked #1 for 2 years. And then the WBC made Dominic Brazil, who's ranked #5, the mandatory for Wilder. So when all the mandatory fights that Haney was ordered to fight by the WBC were against nondescript opposition. Okay? So stop. You have to understand how these sanctioning bodies work. They have all these rules in place where they have full control over when a mandatory is fought and who the mandatory is going to be against. Just because it says right in their rules, just because a fighter is ranked #1 does not mean he's a mandatory challenger. Okay? It's pretty clear what the WBC's plan is here. And again, you guys are naive. You don't see it. They want to have a guy like Ryan Garcia as their interim champion who's extremely popular. And they also want to have a guy like Devin Haney, who's making $3 million a fight over at the Zone, so they can get a 3% sanctioning fee from Devin Haney. Now they can get a 3% sanctioning fee for Ryan Garcia. Again, look at the empirical data. Why do you think the WBC does what it does? Now they have not two champions, they have a ton of champions now. They got one guy in Devin Haney who's making $3 million a fight, allegedly. And then you have another guy like Ryan Garcia, who's arguably the most popular fighter in the division. Now you strap a belt around both guys' waists, and what do you have? You have two fighters who can give you a sanctioning fee. So don't sit there and tell me that the sanctioning bodies also don't have a plan here. There's a reason why the sanctioning bodies do what they do. So let's just stop being naive here. Let's stop trying to ignore the behavior, and let's stop trying to ignore the evidence here. Come on. You know what the WBC is doing here. So it is what it is. Well, they're not all playing games. Teofimo Lopez ain't playing games. Well, again, if Garcia is going to be fighting Javier Fortuna in his next fight, that is a very tough fight. Style-wise, that is a tough fight. So you got to give him credit. Luke Campbell, on paper, was a tough fight. He's fighting tougher opponents right now than Devin Haney is. We have to be honest. We have to be honest. And Devin Haney's got 25 fights, and he's got allegedly, well, not even allegedly, he's got the real WBC wrapped around his waist. Can anyone tell me right now that Luke Campbell and Javier Fortuna isn't better than anyone on Devin Haney's resume right now? Haney wasn't. Listen to this statement, Brandon White. Again, the internet is forever. People are going to see this comment. Haney wasn't getting credit for almost fighting Fortuna. So we're supposed to give credit for a fight almost happening, but it doesn't happen. Once again, Haney was playing you. Keep feeding it. This video is for you, Brandon White. This video is for Rob87 in the chat. Listen to what these people are saying. Oh, exactly. Haney gets no credit. Well, what do you want me to give Haney credit for? Name a great fighter a great fighter that Haney beat. You can't. So once again, Haney's got Brandon White and Rob87. I think Fortuna wipes the floor with Linares at this point. It's not even a toss-up, in my opinion. I would bet the house on Fortuna. I'm just telling you. Fortuna is an outstanding fighter. He's an outstanding fighter. Because it's not a good fight. Haney versus Linares is not a good fight. It's not. It's not a good fight. It's not a fight where we can give. Let's look at the odds right now for Haney Linares. This video is for all you guys in the chat that allow yourselves to be manipulated. I feel bad for everyone in this chat that has been drinking the Kool-Aid. If you're excited Linares right now, then I have to question you as a boxing fan. Fortuna is way better than Linares right now. Way better than Linares right now. It's not even close. It's just not even close. So you guys are just going to keep falling for it. You're just going to keep falling for it. It's fine. Yeah, I thought I picked Evan to beat Kelly. I was never impressed with Josh Kelly at all. I just wasn't. I just wasn't. I made a little bit of money on that. He was an underdog. Evan was a 2-1 underdog on that fight. I made a little bit of cash. I was happy. I was happy. Let's look at the odds here. Haney versus Linares odds. See if they even have a see if there's even a line for it right now. Yeah, I don't think there's a line. There's not even a line for it right now. They haven't put a line up for it yet. So we'll see. But I guarantee you this: Linares will be like a 6-1 dog at least. Linares is Haney's best opponent, possibly. Some may say Gamboa, who knows? But once again, guys are falling for it. Devin Haney has no intention of fighting a guy like Nakatani or a guy like Richard Comey. If he beats a guy like Richard Comey or beats a guy like Nakatani, I'm going to be impressed. If he beats a guy like Fortuna, I'm going to be impressed. But those fights are not going to happen in the distant future as long as they can keep putting fight. I wouldn't be surprised. Don't be surprised if Devin Haney beats Linares if he goes ahead and fights Luke Campbell. Because Luke Campbell's turning the corner right now. He's starting to become out of his prime right now. So let's not be surprised if we don't see that fight. Albanesian versus Virgil Ortiz, extremely tough fight for Virgil Ortiz, but I will pick Virgil Ortiz to win that fight. You can make an argument for that Linares is Haney's best opponent to date. You can make an argument for that. Listen, if you're not giving Haney's opponents even the slightest chance of winning, then you must know what it is. So just because somebody was good at one point in time and they're no longer as dangerous and they've out of their prime, we have to judge them based off, yeah, it is about what have you done for me lately. Of course it is. Why would that question even need to be asked here? Of course, that's what it's about. Of course, that's what it's about. That goes without saying. That's common sense. So I reiterate my previous statement. Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence will never, ever fight Manny Pacquiao. Those fights will never happen. Pacquiao has no incentive to fight those guys. He's almost 41 years old. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua are not going to fight in the summertime. I just don't see it happening. Okay? We were told that they signed their agreement on March 13th. Okay? March 13th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That was 19 days ago, almost 3 weeks ago. But yet we're told by Eddie Hearn that the deal is close to being done. How could a deal be close to being done, okay, when we have no announcement? Now Eddie Hearn, again, I believe it was yesterday, Tuesday or Wednesday, he came out and said that he will have a venue announced by the end of this week. So Eddie Hearn has two and a half days left. Okay, he's got 2.5 days left to announce that venue. If that is not announced in 2.5 days, then again, are we going to continue to believe Eddie Hearn, who's going to keep trying to sell us Wolf tickets? That's the thing. Are we going to keep buying the Wolf tickets? So that's the thing. You have to ask yourself these types of questions. Again, I've been making videos all week here. Show me some appreciation. Give me some likes. Shoot me a couple super chats here. Join the membership at least. Do something, you guys. I mean, support me like other YouTube channels get supported here. Support us. We've put a lot of our own money into this project, Eric and myself. Probably more so Eric. I have to give him a shout out. He's always, buying equipment, and there's a lot of membership things that we have to pay for every week to bring you these videos and bring you these shows. Show some appreciation. Like the video, share the video, tweet out the video, join a membership. It's only, I have a couple thousand subscribers there. Imagine if every subscriber joined the membership. It's only $1, man. Thank you so much, Brandon White. It's only $2 to join a membership. You mean to tell me you guys can't give this channel $2 a month? So join the membership. You join the membership, you have a lot of benefits. You can just read all the benefits you have. Join the membership and just help support the channel, man. The channel needs your support. Channel needs your support. But getting back to this thing, man. Yeah, Pacquiao he's never gonna fight Crawford or Spence. They're just never gonna happen. And you're not gonna see Haney fight Garcia or Fortuna or Lomachenko or Teofimo Lopez. You're not gonna see those fights happen this year either. They're selling us Wolf tickets. And if you guys want to keep buying the Wolf tickets, then that's fine. Stop clicking on well, I can't say stop clicking on Chris Mannix's articles and stop clicking on Mike Comprage's articles. Stop clicking on a lot of these guys' clickbait. But call them out. Call them out. Ask them, say, well, who are your so-called sources? Do you have sources on both sides? Or do you just have one source? Call them out, question them, challenge them. Because I've challenged them several times. Challenge these people. Crawford is going back and forth with a lot of fans on Twitter, on YouTube and stuff. Not on YouTube, but on Twitter. And he's basically mocking them. He's trolling them back. And that's fine. He could do that if he wants. I have a lot of respect for Crawford. But, again, fact check his statements. He's going to sit there and tell us that Canelo is avoiding African American fighters. Then let's take a look at his resume. We've already pointed out the hypocrisy in his statements. So if you're going to criticize someone else for doing something or not doing something, then you have to live up to your own criticisms. You have to live up to your own standards. If you're going to have standards for Canelo Alvarez, who's arguably pound for pound best fighter in the world, a lot of people think it's either him or Crawford, then Crawford should have those same standards as Canelo Alvarez would have. So where is the list of African American fighters on Terence Crawford's record? I don't see them. So again, it's okay to fact check these guys. I'm not going to be disrespectful towards any fighter. I'm not going to insult any fighter, but I will fact check them. I will hold them accountable for things they say. And if what they say is inaccurate, I will point out the inaccuracies in their statements. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay? So, I think that's about all I got for you guys, man. Make sure you check me out tonight on D-Style Boxing's channel. The round table, Throwback Thursday round table. I'll be on there with D-Style. G Funky will probably be on there, and a couple other spontaneous guests will be on there as well. Thank you, JC. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody in the chat for supporting. Appreciate that. Yeah, so make sure you check me out. And as always, check out the Ringside Reporter podcast every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern time with myself and Eric Lauda. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at JBPorn. Follow me on Instagram at Joe Habib, Facebook, Joe Habib. Subscribe to this channel. Share the videos. Support the channel. And we'll keep pumping up the content for you, man. Good morning, Coco the Don. Sorry that you jumped on right when I'm about to leave, but I got things I got to do. Good morning, Denise. Nice to see you as always. Just finishing up here. Wish you guys came on later, but you guys can catch me on the archive here. All right, Beav is out. Talk to y'all soon. Peace. Have a great day, man. Stay safe, everybody.